Welcome to a new edition of the Heat Treat Podcast. Today we have Ryan Fussell as our guest, all the way from Dallas, Texas, from the whole area. How's it going, Ryan?
Very good. How are you, Carlos?
Doing all right. Actually, I got this hat of yours that you gave me in Florida like a month ago, and I can tell you, it was fun to see you with your hat all the way from Texas. Thanks for the hat.
Well, hey, I gave you a used one, so it was all broken in, so had the goodness in it.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. So, about a lot of people have been asking me actually to have a heat treater, a real heat treater, right? Because we have had.
Wait a minute. Okay. Wait, I thought you talked about a real heat treater. Okay,
you are because we have had suppliers, we have had captive heat treaters, but it's always great to have a commercial heat treater, born and raised, which I believe is your background. So tell us a little bit about Southwest Metal Treating. Tell us about Ryan Fussell. What do you do? And your passion for heat treat. So give us a brief background about yourself and your company. You actually lead. You're the president of the company.
Well, Southwest Metal Treating was incorporated in 1985. It was a subsidiary of my dad and my uncle and my grandfather's heat treat shop in Dallas, Texas. Somewhere, probably in the early 90s, the company split off. My uncle and my cousins took the one in Dallas, and we took this one. And Southwest Metal Treating was more of a forging and machining shop with a little bit of heat treating. And then as we kind of went out on our own, we went more to the heat treating, what we knew really well. And anyway, so we've been we moved over to Fort Worth from Arlington. I think it was about 1992, and bought one lot over here that was 3 acres, and then bought the lot next to us, and so now we're 7 acres and have 50,000 square feet under building, and just grown ever since, and just to try to meet the demand of our customers. And we kind of had fun, I guess, doing it. I don't know, hard times, good times, just heat treating. But I've done this since I don't know. There's pictures of me and my grandpa on a old forklift with no top sitting on there, and I'm a kid. I'm sure that's probably not OSHA approved, but riding around with a 10-year-old on there.
So you're a third generation.
Yes.
The family business is a third generation.
There's a few out there, but it's
and I understand that you became president of the company at a relatively young age. So
yeah, it was at 2010. My dad passed away, and I took over the reins then, and I was I don't know, 36 years old at the time, and we were kind of equipment was a little outdated and everything like that. And I decided that, if I'm going to, make it as a heat treater, I, need to invest a little bit of money. And so we'd get a little money, we'd buy some equipment, we'd buy some better equipment. And then we get to
that's when you and I met.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, it's, if you'd have seen my shop 10 years ago and you see it today, you would go, that is not the same place I was in.
So today we're going to talk about carburizing on a little more on the technical side. But before that, you actually have a Texas flag in the back.
Yes.
Right? So
I'm a proud Texan.
Proud Texan. So we have interviewed people from the Midwest. We have interviewed from the West Coast, and they're totally different countries, if you want to look at that way. A lot of people from California is actually going to Texas right now. But can you give us an introduction to Texas, the market? And of course, it is always assumed when you talked about Texas, you're talking about oil and gas and that type of industry, which I don't believe is the case anymore. right?
Right.
So just give us a debrief about what's happening in Texas right now and a little bit of history.
You know, when I started, oil and gas was mostly down south in Houston area. And, I always kind of say when the frack boom happened here in about 2006, 7, um, and they started drilling up here, and then fracking, manufacturing got big in North Texas. And, but the ups and downs of it, because anybody can always tell you that oil and gas, it will consume you. I mean, those guys, they ride to the top and they go quickly. And it's, and it seems like a lot of the other industries get pushed out. And, you know, so I kind of thought that maybe a good way to be diverse again is to make sure that we kind of, you know, absolutely do oil and gas. I mean, that's
It's a big industry
primary.
up there.
It is. It's the industry, but we also have mining. We have aircraft. Um, there's some automotive here. It's not near as much as what you would see in the Northeast or anything like that. And of course, aircraft. I mean, it's not anything that you see, up in the Midwest and stuff like that. But we do. I mean, there's Lockheed's, Bell Helicopter, and other aircraft manufacturers around here too. So it's a good industry, just to be a little diverse on everything you do. And of course, just standard machine shop stuff and fasteners and stuff like that. And, we're really big. We used to do lots and lots of mining. I mean, it was a lot of a big stuff. And, that kind of fell off. I think a lot of that stuff went overseas, and and it kind of comes back a little bit, and it's just never what it was before. But yeah, so
But also Texas, it's bouncing back with manufacturing. There's a lot of big corporations that are moving. Well, Tesla is a big example. It's moving.
yeah,
It's opening a plant in Austin, and it's gonna be fully automotive, right? I believe they're doing the truck over there
yes,
in
yeah, I think
Austin.
something.
So there's gonna be some manufacturing supply chain movement for sure, right? And it seems that like Texas is right on the spot. Of course, it's business friendly tax wise, and with the new administration, maybe you have a much more investments of manufacturing in there now. Also with China being so slow on supplying. So I believe you're in a good position, and it's pretty diverse because I'll tell you, in the Midwest, it's mostly automotive, and these guys would like to have a little more diverse industry. And as you're telling, automotive is just too big to ignore, right? If you're
Right.
there, well, try to be profitable, right? But now you're telling me that Texas has aerospace, mining, now automotive, and of course there's oil and gas.
Oil and gas, of course.
Have you seen a significantly drop in oil and gas demands?
Yeah, oil prices being up, but we're definitely not anywhere near. I mean, oil prices, of course, are probably near the pre-COVID time, but the manufacturing of the oil and gas parts seems it's a real big roller coaster right now. You just, with the oil prices being the way they are, you would think that the manufacturing would be up, and it's just, and I don't know if it's, well, I've heard from customers too, it's a lot of material issues too,
Yeah,
is getting their material. And
it's hard to find steel.
it is, and that's the problem. I mean, they may have orders to make 1 million pieces, but they can only, get out 50,000 because they're not getting the material there. So, and unfortunately, I know, and everybody in this country is probably feeling it too in the manufacturing, but there is a labor shortage. Um, I'm sorry, but the unemployment is not that bad if when you drive down the interstate, and every large manufacturing company has now hiring signs on their building, and they just can't get people to come back to work.
And on heat treat especially, well, mostly on everything, but that can be, we can actually automate our lines to a certain point, but there's always the need for labor to assembly loads and disassembly loads. And because we got such a variety of parts and the ways we rack it, it's a very labor intensive job, right?
Yes, sir.
And most of the big companies, they go like, well, I'm going to automate that. And it's hard to automate trade assembly or basket assembly. How do you do it with these days? Is it pretty manual?
You mean operating the furnaces?
No, assembly trays.
Oh, assembly
Assembly
trays.
trays
Yeah.
and baskets.
I mean, it is a manual operation. I mean, it's, every part, I mean, and, most parts that we do are pretty much finished machine parts, and they have to be, you know, manually put in the baskets and racked in there. And, it's time consuming, of course. And, but we get it done, just like all the other heat treaters do.
So let's talk now about carburizing. Let's go into subject.
Okay.
So it's also a perception, but I believe this one is true, that everything is big in Texas, right? So we have had several other podcasts, and we have talked carburizing on light vehicles parts, so
Right.
really small, high precision machine parts on very high volume. But when it comes to Texas, and I've been into your shop and I've been into other shops in Texas, you carburize very big parts, very dense, very heavy, and you have to treat those parts a little different of how you treat light automotive parts, right?
Right.
Different racking, different process time. There are different steels, right?
Yes.
So tell us about how to heat treat, especially how to carburize and the type on the typical steel types that you heat treat.
We do a lot of 8620
8620,
carburizing.
okay?
I mean, especially for oil and gas. There is some that you use 4715 and stuff like that. It's a little different processing. It's in general, it's the same. It's just a little more times here and there.
What are the case depths that you typically?
Well, I mean, we're anywhere from 50 to 120 thousandths case depths on parts.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's big case depth. So typically on a typical carburizing cycle on light automotive, the heat ramp is 40 minutes to an hour, right? Then soaking 4 to 6, diffusion maybe 40 minutes, and then quench. That's what I do. That's like the biggest I go, the largest I go. How about yourself?
Well, you may add about 50% to each one of those little steps there too, when you're doing it on the scale of going to 120 thousandths. And and we'll play with it a little bit. I don't want to give too much away, but we'll play with our our boost and our diffusion times and stuff like that. And we'll do a lot of testing on it. I definitely want to say that we invested a lot in controls. And over the past 5 years, that has made a huge difference in processing. There is no question when I run a program that program's getting run exactly what it needs to do. And we just don't stick with one thing. I mean, when we are always trying to figure out how we can do it better and faster, of course. When you're carburizing 8620, I mean, sometimes if you get a casting, sometimes you get a forging, they may not do the exact same things. I mean, so, you might can shave 30 minutes off here. You may have to add 30 minutes to keep your case depths where you need to be. Because, most of our customers try to keep a real tight tolerance. They may want 60 to 80 thousandths. I mean, that's pretty loose to me actually, but you'll get some of them that, they may want 60 to 70 thousandths case depth on there. And so you got to be real careful with it. And, luckily we do a lot of repetitive parts. So it's we don't have to adjust our processes as much as you think we would have to when we get them, you know, and we'll watch, you know, we do all our own case depths in house. And so we'll watch any particular parts. And if for some reason, all of a sudden they're coming out a little shallow, or let's just say they're coming out at the bottom of the scale, you know, we'll watch it and then we'll adjust accordingly. And it's the same way if they're coming out at the top of the scale, we'll say, hey, maybe we can shave a little bit of time off of there. And that way we can get them out faster. Because I still haven't found a customer yet that understands a 20-hour process when they want it in 10 hours.
And how about destructive testing? Is that common in oil and gas to have a batch, and destruct a piece in order to test it?
Yeah, you know, I mean, pretty much everything we're testing parts on, pretty much everything. And, you know, just depending on the customer spec, we may have to, you know, do case depths on 3 or 4 parts per load. Sometimes it's just 1 part per load. You know, and that's getting in more in, you know, if you get into the fracking part of it, if you get into the flow side of, you know, the oil and gas business, then, you know, they're wanting case depths, they're wanting, you know, tensils and yields and Sharpie tests done on it. So, and of course we send all that out, and, you know, the only thing we do in house is, you know, just case depths and hardness testing and stuff like that.
Because you're dealing with very different industries when you say oil and gas, and I'm going to put fracking over there as well.
Right.
So they require some type of testing for their parts, some types of handling. I don't know if they do as much as traceability, but you also mentioned that you do aerospace, and we're going to talk about AS9100, but the difference are huge of how you have to treat those parts on traceability and quality systems. How do you manage that on your heat treat shop? Because those are 2 different industries that have to be handled 2 different ways, but you might be running those on the same furnace.
Right. Well, you know, we don't run those in the same loads. I mean, same furnace loads and stuff like that.
No, not furnace loads, maybe same furnace.
Oh yeah, the same furnace.
I will never run aerospace with mining. No,
right.
No.
You know, and honestly, oil and gas over the past 10 years has gotten they really hammer on the traceability, which is good. I mean, I'm glad they did it. I mean, I remember, you know, 10 years ago and prior to that, oil and gas, a lot of times they didn't really care. They just wanted the hardness. And
that's the perception, because when you have a customer, if you're not in the oil and gas industry, and suddenly you got an RFQ, you go like, well, I'm automotive, I do aerospace, I can handle that.
Right.
But you see a specification, and you have to treat the parts a whole different way.
Well, the way we set up our furnaces, and you know, and we just achieved our AS9100 last week. We finally got our certification for it. Pretty exciting for us. I know the guys that all have it, and that's a lot of work, and they told me, and it was a good process. I got a great team here that, I mean, they worked real hard on getting it done. And, you know, we walked out of our audit, you know, just like anything, we had a few minors that I think everybody in the world gets a few minors.
You have to have minors, because otherwise the auditor wouldn't.
Well, they're not doing their job if they don't find something. So
right, you're 100% correct. You know.
Yep.
No minors.
And so, you know, but in that whole year or so process, I mean, more like probably a year and a half process of working on that AS9100, we went ahead and, you know, our equipment needs to be set up to handle that aircraft standards too. So we treat oil and gas, we treat the guy down the road the same way with his machine parts. They're getting the same traceability that we do for aircraft parts.
And I believe that's a great added value to the customer if you can actually explain that to the machine shop owner. Go like, dude, and treating your parts like aircraft parts, right?
Right.
No matter if they're gonna go on a structure or a hammer, you name it.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what had to be done to get AS9100. If a commercial shop wanted to take that leap, what do they have to take in consideration?
Well, I mean,
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It's absolutely a lot of work, and I mean, anything's a lot of paperwork, but anybody that goes through an ISO 9000, audit, I mean, this is on steroids. It's a lot more detailed in, just record keeping, and, it's just, things we do and stuff like that. And, so, I mean, we had to, and there was some things that we had to change, and on the way that our, data comes in from our furnaces. And, that's what I said. It is a very good commitment to do it. I'm excited that, we got it. And, I mean, I look forward to the future of doing something, I always said, man, if you can heat treat a part that goes in a rocket, how cool is that?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And especially, so when you deal with these types of certifications or specs, I believe one of the key things that it's a must is to have good controllers, right?
Yes.
Because as you're saying, it's a bunch of paperwork, but if you have computers and controls and softwares, most of the job gets automated, right? You still need to have some paperwork, but the more you automate the load and the more tracking of the data that you get makes all the difference, especially on an audit, right? Because they're going to ask you for evidence on how do you do that, how you do that, and if you can actually have access to the information and just download it from a computer with a couple of clicks, you're on the other side. But you have to design an architecture how you're going to do that.
Yep. I really appreciate those guys that we buy those great controllers from, and without giving their names out, and I'll just tell them they are some wonderful, smart people that we deal with, and they take care. If we have, issues with anything, I mean, or if we got some ideas, and they tell us that it would work, and they make it happen. And I'll tell anybody, I was like, your controls, the way you gather that data every day makes your life so much easier. I remember the times when we had like 5,000 filing cabinets, and we kept paper. So, yeah, it is definitely a lot easier on you on keeping your data.
So yeah, whenever I talk to heat treat owners or presidents or managers, you want to say that, and we talk about the key things about running a commercial heat treat or even a captive. Good controls, right? Good utilization of machinery. I mean, your furnace have to be well utilized, otherwise you will be burning gas. You have to optimize the load. Good team, and a good maintenance program. I don't know if you would add another one to that one.
You pretty much hit every one of them there. I mean, maintenance is key. Preventive maintenance is key. I mean, we all know what happens when, a furnace goes down. I mean, you're talking days. I mean, first of all, it's going to take 2 days before you can even get into it to fix it. So that preventive maintenance is key. One time, long time ago, somebody told me, it's like, hey, if you change a tube in the furnace, you might as well go ahead and change both tubes in there. And I'm like, whoa, man, it's kind of a lot of money. You go over there and, the tube's not blown out. They said, well, how much longer do you think that tube's going to last? And man, I'll tell you what, they're right. You change a tube, change them both. I mean, it's, it's, if you're getting the life out of them, I mean, sometimes you'll have some other issues that might make a tube go out, but most of it's just the lifetime of it, the life expectancy of it. But yeah, maintenance, I mean, controls, I mean, I tell you what, the one best thing, and I tell people this, just the simplest thing. If you come into my shop and you notice, I do not have a lot of oil. I mean, drug all over the floor, because the most beautiful thing it has drip timers in it. Don't let you open the door until it's been in there for 15 minutes. It makes a world of difference in saving oil. I mean, and keeping your floor clean. So, you can keep your housekeeping a little bit better, and then doing it the old way. And, I remember the old equipment, they had all the dial timers, and you set on there, but shoot, half the time those things would go out. So, and not everything was manual. I mean, everything in our furnaces now, they're automatic. I mean, load it in the front door, select a program, hit run, it'll buzz when it's done, ready to take out.
And now you mentioned something that caught my attention: maintenance. But also before, early in the show, you mentioned the lack of labor that there is. And when we talk about maintenance, it's very skilled labor, especially on furnaces, because they need to know how to handle that machine, which is not a machine shop. It's actually a dangerous machine if you don't know how to handle that. So and there's some suppliers that they will do service, or they will sell you stuff like that. What's your impression, or what's your opinion on how big does the maintenance department on a commercial heat treat shop have to be? How robust? Do you have to be able to do everything? Because that's a lot of sort of overhead, right? And there's a bunch of experts that they know controls, they know gas, they know burner tuning, they do refractory and braking, or they do mechanical repairs, even painting. How robust do you think a maintenance department or a commercial heater shop has to be in order not to elevate fixed cost and overhead?
Right.
But you have to be able to have a really quick response time.
Yeah, I mean, good question, because I mean, there's a time, I mean, I have quite a bit of maintenance guys, and they are very knowledgeable on pretty much everything on that piece of equipment. For a shop, I mean, I remember having one maintenance guy, back in the day. I mean, but we might have been only running 2 or 3 IQ furnaces and stuff like that. And then of course, we were also doing a lot of maintenance too. It is, to me, an absolute necessity to have an in-house maintenance crew that can handle anything, because I'm going to tell you what, things break only on the weekend, usually a holiday weekend, and it's usually on a Saturday night or a Sunday.
Especially when you got dinner reservations with your wife.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this is not the cleanest type work to come in and say, hey, I'm going to go fix something and be ready to go out to dinner. So, my guys, and, yes, there is an expense to keep them. I mean, it is a sought after job in this industry to find good quality people that know, from a guy that, knows exactly what to do, to how to get some parts out of a quench tank. If you had a tray or a basket fail and you dropped a part in a quench, to guy that can brick a door jamb, change the burners, tune the burners. I mean, it is definitely a necessity to have. On the one good thing about it on the controller side now, with the world that we live in, we make a phone call and, they log in and they figure out what's going on with it.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Okay.
Because I think that's a very interesting topic. On commercial shops and family businesses, they're super open about, because it's very practical. If you get an issue and the control guys are over there, just log in, help me from wherever you are, and help me get my foreigners back running again. But if you talk with captive companies, they go like, no, we need to have cybersecurity. You're gonna hack and you're gonna take a look at our information. And I can understand and balance that.
Right.
But will you be afraid that somebody will log into your furnace and take a look at your recipes and your data? What's the opinion of a commercial heat treat shop, family business owner regarding cybersecurity? Because you have to have this openness, because it's really practical for those control guys just to log in and help you out, because that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's always concern nowadays. Anybody getting anything that you kind of create on your own, or you come up with a great process or something like that.
We're really afraid for guys to steal recipe from us.
A lot of it, I mean, a lot of it is trial and error. I mean, if there's a customer down the road that sends you a part, or it sends your competitor a part, saying competitor can't do it, well, then all of a sudden you get it done right. I mean, yeah, somebody might want to know what you were doing to it, but most
to the point to hire a hacker.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, it's the companies that we work with, I mean, it's a lot of trust in those guys. I get it. I've dealt with.
I get it as well.
I've dealt with captive shops before, and it's the same thing. It's like, oh, hey, you can't come over here and look at my my computer running my program here and something like that. And it's like, I've probably seen it before. I mean, and most of the time I probably wouldn't even remember it when I walked out the door. So, but yeah, I mean, I get that. I can understand where there would be some fear in there. And, the one thing about it is, I like to think that, all my competitors and stuff like that, we're on a friendly basis. And I just don't think any of us would just say that was our ultimate goal in the day, is to go in and find out what, the heat treat shop down the road's running on a process. So
now talking about utilizations, or I like to call it load optimization, right? When you're dealing with very big dense parts, and we have a finite sizing for the furnace. I mean, we can just throw so much weight on it, or so much surface.
Right.
But the optimal will be to load the furnace as much as possible, right? Yeah. What's your approach on loading and optimizing big baskets?
Well, the weight, that one's pretty simple. I mean, if you have a 3,500 pound furnace, that's usually, I can't put a piece in there that big. But, the surface, I found that out a long time ago. I just never grasped the whole surface thing on there until you...
you get some flames.
Well, until you're blowing smoke and oil out of the.
I learned it the hard way. I went like, just load it all the way up, and suddenly you start seeing a bunch of flames when you quench it, and a lot of pressure. So
yeah, that gets a little scary. that could scare you a little bit when it starts doing that. And I mean, and we just look at it, and fortunately, most of the stuff we do, you're never going to maximize your weight on it, because you might want to watch the surface a little bit, but that's not as much as you would think it would be. The most of the time that I ever ran into that is we were running some very little clips, and we're stacking baskets up all the way and filling it up,
especially with fasteners. You get a bunch of surface.
Yep. But we're in Texas. We only do big, huge parts.
I know, that's what I'm asking you. But the thing when you run light auto components or auto components is that you have to buy a very expensive fixture, because they're not able to touch each other because of hot spots, or maybe decarburized spots. But how some big parts? Are you allowed parts to touch one another.
No, not necessarily. It's the same way.
In the same way, you have to
Yeah.
leave distance between parts for the carburized gas to flow and actually absorb it. So it's pretty much.
I mean, even in some neutral hardening stuff like that, you don't want to, jeopardize the integrity of the quench on that part if you're laying something on it. So, I mean, racking in anything is always key. I mean, you have to put some thought in racking. I believe that it is one of the top key things in running a successful part is to make sure that it's racked right. Well, first of all, nobody likes straightening. I mean, I haven't run across a heat treater yet that says, man, I love to straighten parts. I mean, it's just so they'll spend a lot of money on fixturing and, a lot of time on racking on parts. And it's key.
Well, the beauty of heat treating big parts is that supposedly they will distort much more less.
You're right.
Right, and every heat treater complains about distortion. So that's like the good news about heat treating big stuff. Parts get less distorted. They do get distorted to some point, but it's not like a big issue. I believe the big issue will be not to carburize, not to have the case depth that you require. Is that a fair statement?
That is definitely an issue you don't want to have. You don't want to under carburize something because, the reworking and going back in and having to rework a part, which absolutely it can be done. But then, and I know there's calculators out there. We have them, we have computer programs that, tell us, what we should run something if we were under depth or something like that. And, I kind of feel like sometimes you're rolling the dice on it. So it's really good to keep your data and to know and to watch, those repetitive parts you run every day is let's just, don't stick them in there and run them. And then, hey, if the results are good, then it's good and let it go. You gotta go one step further with that. You got to look at it and say, hey, okay, like I said earlier, I'm at the top of the range or I'm at the bottom of the range. We need to watch these parts a little closer and just see maybe if it wasn't just a fluke that one time that we ran that one load.
And I'm going to change the subject to another business, a commercial heat treat business subject, which is freight to customer plant back and forth. I mean, Texas is really big. It's a very large state, right? And there's a lot of inventory process when you're actually having trucks back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's a lot of money from the customer. On captives, I understand that everything is if it's forged or cast or machine, and then they'll heat treat and go back. But commercial heat treat is a geographical location, and you can be competitive so far away or so close by a customer. How's it like in Texas? Is there a bunch of working process, a lot of transit going on parts? How far do you go? And I understand on special parts like aerospace, like if you have a specific partner that can do that specific work, I mean, you have to ship it all the way because it's only one part. But in this case, we're talking about tons and tons and tons of parts.
And I think I can, all the heat treaters in North Texas, we all run trucks.
And everybody runs trucks.
Everybody runs trucks. And I know they do. I see them all the time running. And, like I said, we'll run all over the state of Texas, and to limitations. I don't think we've ever had to drive out to El Paso or anything like that, but
it's a big state.
It is a big state. I think I could probably drive to Illinois to Chicago faster than I could drive to El Paso.
That's what I'm asking. But and there's a lot of industry in El Paso.
Yes, there is, and that's when you just kind of you lean on the freight companies to do stuff like that. But local stuff, we're running every day to our customers. It's a necessity. Well, nowadays it is. Like you said, trucking's kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, just the maintenance and that's just a whole nother animal on it. And I'm not a mechanic, so yeah, I have to send my trucks down the road to, if something goes wrong with them. But yeah, it is. We are definitely in a trucking country up here.
It is. Well, Ryan, it's been fantastic talking to you about commercial heat treating. Is there something that we missed that you would like to share with the audience?
No, I mean, I think I really enjoy it. I had a good time. I know we've been
Yeah,
talking about it for quite a while to do it. So.
It is, but you kept canceling the dates, and we had a point, right? And that's why you gave me a hat. Thanks.
You intimidated me. You scared me to go.
No, it's always great to have a commercial heat treater, third generation, running a shop. Trying to deliver quality, to deliver brand, to deliver commercial heat treatment with technology. Trying to. It's always fun. That's his space for talking about heat treating and all the things that nobody else likes to talk with us except heat treaters, right?
Right.
So that's what we do. Thanks so much.
We do talk to a lot of heat treaters. It is funny when we go to an MTI event. Boy, we're all together.
That's the heat treat space. But hey, if you meet somebody on a plane and they ask you what do you do for a living, and they go like, well, there's metal, and we actually heat it up, and you just lose them, right? I mean, they're gonna plug their earpods. So Ryan, I always
you always tell them, Carlos, when you're on the airplane, go, I heat treated everything on this plane, so you might want to talk to me a little bit nicer. I don't know, just kidding.
So
no, we can
Ryan,
cut that one out.
I always like to finish the podcasts with a personal advisor experience that you have learned through your entire career that you would like to have been told when you were 3 years old. And if you could go back in time and talk to 30-year-old Ryan, what advice would you give him?
Ooh.
Right? Before you had your beer, right? So what would be a nice advice to give to your younger self before, going on this crazy adventure of commercial heat treating?
Well, definitely, listen a lot more. I've been accused of time or two of I like to talk a lot, especially when we might have a beer or two. Listen a lot more. I've learned that in my older life to listen to, especially some of the older heat treaters I've been fortunate enough to meet and everything, and just suck that knowledge up, because we're all gonna you're gonna have wins and you're gonna have loses, and or losses, and we definitely don't want to have any losses. So I definitely tell myself to maybe just suck up some of that knowledge that you hear from people, and maybe not I don't know.
Well,
that's a tough question to think about. You should have said that one to me prior.
I believe it's hard for you to listen because you have a very deep voice and a very loud voice. And actually, you should start a podcast. You have a great voice. And I believe that's pretty true, right? There's a lot of people with a lot of experience. And when you're a young president, like, I'm also 35 and I became president of the company I worked for 2 years ago. You have a bunch of drive, you believe you know everything. And there's a bunch of guys over there with a bunch of experience that they just want to try to help, right? So I'll take that, listen more.
Yeah, I was told one time before by somebody that the guys that think they know everything pretty much don't know a damn thing. So
because they don't listen, they haven't learned, right? So it is. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your time. It was a great podcast. I had a blast.
Carlos, thank you.
This is Ryan Fussell, all the way from Dallas, the Fort Worth area in Texas, president of Southwest Metal Treating. So we're uploading weekly podcasts on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify. Don't miss the episodes. Go like this, Ryan. Go like this, because here's the subscribe link. Please subscribe, right? Give us a comment, and Ryan will send you a hat. It's a great hat. And don't forget to tune us next week on the Heat Treat Podcast.